Hi, welcome to I Love the Library. I'm Mary Haney, Director of the Detroit Lakes Public Library. I'm so glad you decided to join me today because we are going to talk about classics. I know we've talked about classics before, but with the Great American Read series being on PBS recently, we are talking about, the whole nation is talking about classics. I know a lot of people who've watched that program, and we're waiting to see. We haven't yet decided which is the top Great American Read. At this point, I think it might be To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I couldn't find a copy of it in the library. I did find her prequel, Go Set a Watchman, which came out a couple of years ago. But the reason I couldn't find it in the library is because it is consistently checked out, which is part of what makes it a classic. After all these years, it is still read and discussed by a lot of people. In fact, my take on the classics today, at least a part of it, is that To Kill a Mockingbird is the most lied about book. Lying in the sense that people lie about having read it when they really haven't. So we've got a few of the top classics that people have lied about reading. And To Kill a Mockingbird is one of them, in part because it's so often taught in schools, and kids at that, let's say, 8th, 9th grade don't really want to read it. They just want the Cliff Notes. So later in life, they say, oh yeah, I read To Kill a Mockingbird in high school or junior high, but they haven't really. So that's one. Another one that they've lied about having read is Romeo and Juliet. Now, I know that that's taught in many, many public high schools across the United States. And that may be the same story. I mean, it's not actually a novel, it's a play. The language is very antique, so it can be difficult to read, but what a great time to read it when you're in high school and you have the guidance of your English teachers. But that's a classic that's been lied about. Also, this one surprised me. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I'm not sure this one is yet a classic. It may be on its way to becoming one, but apparently people lie about reading that one. Diary of Anne Frank, same story. I think people encounter it in school and they don't actually read it. And then this one, I'm not surprised people lie about reading about the adventures of Tom Sawyer or the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which is right here. We had that one in the library because they're not easy reading. You know, they're written in dialect, which is not modern language for us, and so it's tough. But in looking for classics and thinking about classics, I just walked through the library and picked up books as I went, and here is a cart full of books that are all classics. And if you look at the spines on these, you can see that they kind of follow a pattern. Most of them have been reissued many, many times, and so they have, maybe as part of a series, they'll have a cover that looks like this. They may have a ribbon to marking your place. This is Jane Austen. Everything that Jane Austen wrote and published is considered a classic. This happens to be Northanger Abbey, and we have Sense and Sensibility. You know, these things are made into TV shows and movies all the time, and they are read constantly and discussed a lot. We have a lot of book clubs in the area, and almost every book club occasionally will say, let's read a classic. So come to the library, and we have lots of classics. It's easy to find because you look for, you know, this is part of the Everyman library. You can tell a book by its cover. And you can look at the backs of these. The spines of these all look alike, and you can just pick them out very easily. So often a book club will want to read Dickens. My favorite Dickens is this one, David Copperfield. I think it's the finest book Dickens wrote. I went through a Dickens phase in 9th grade, and I think I read 8 or 10 Dickens novels that year. And haven't picked one up since, by the way, but I don't lie about having read them either. So anyway, sometimes a book club will read A Christmas Carol. This is the original manuscript edition, which I think is so interesting. You have to look at this. It's got the manuscript, the actual original manuscript on one page, and then the type so that we modern people can read it on the next page, which I think is an awful lot of fun. I look at that manuscript and I can maybe understand 3 or 4 words on a page, but it's a lot of fun. So come to the library if your book club wants to read classics, or you just yourself want to pick up a classic and read it. I'd be happy to help you with it. So would anybody else in the library. I picked up these, and I have to show you these. These are 2 books by James Michener. Michener may not yet be considered, his work may not yet be considered classics, but look, these are new reprints, new issues of Hawaii and the Source. And for me, that tells me that Michener is well on his way to becoming a classic. We still read these a lot. People check these out and they circulate. They're talked about. I think that's the definition of a modern classic. So come on into the library and check them out.